Hi, guys, it's Michael, and welcome back to the Pet's Journey. I'm so excited for today's episode. Really, so excited. I have no idea how excited that I am. Today, I have, and she is here already, so I'm going to pull her up to the stage as I introduce her. Today, I am joined by someone very
Hello.
well. Hello, Cristina. How are you?
Can you hear me?
I could hear you. Can you hear me?
No. One sec. Let's see.
Okay.
No. Where are we? Issues. Let's see. Help. I don't know if you can. 1 second. I'm going to try to see what's going on.
Oh, we lost her, so maybe she's going to come back on. Thank you. Yeah, I think it's on her end for sure. Hi, thank you. So, you guys, we got a real quick glimpse of Miss Cristina. She's just not just another veterinarian that I know. She's just not something that I bumped into somewhere. I actually have this great relationship with her that we met a while back. I'm going to go ahead and see if I can add her back to the stage. We always go through these first few moments. Oh, there she is.
Hey!
There she is. Hello. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. Sorry, I think there was a little bit of an issue with the mic, with the earphones, and I just couldn't hear you. So, how you
It's
doing?
good, darling. How are you doing?
I'm all right. Just a bit running around like always, but yeah, good. I'm glad that I'm here with you, and then we're going to do the session. I'm quite excited.
I'm so excited. We've been talking about this for a year, maybe, that we're going to be doing this. It's been,
And
life comes and life goes, and life comes and gets in our way sometimes and just distracts us. And, but we're here, and I'm so happy that you made it happen. So thank you. It's so lovely to see you. Have no idea how excited I've been all weekend for this moment.
oh, me too. And thank you so much for having me and inviting me to your amazing Michael the But's journey, which I don't know if Michael has spoken about how we met, which is now a long time ago. I can't believe it's just, kind of nearly 5 years, I think, since COVID.
Yeah.
And, we just kind of met when we were in a chat room and talking about stuff for pets in the good old times where we were all kind of finding something to do while we were in lockdown. And here we are, 5 years later. I had the utter privilege to meet in this amazing, amazing man and try to support him as much as I can with all he's trying to do for pets all over the world. So thank you again for inviting me. I'm being very honored.
Well, you're more than invited. You are family. You know that. And
Thank
for
you.
as we get kicked off here. So what she was talking about is during the pandemic, there was a platform called Clubhouse, and I've talked about it a lot here on my channel. And it was a time where we were all in lockdown, and we were like, what do we do? And my husband said to me, Michael, why don't you get on this thing called Clubhouse and just talk about design? And I thought I was going to get on and talk about interior design, weddings, and all the things that I was doing, prior to my pet life. And as I got over there, I started to see that there was this pet world. And I'm like, I got a little bored in the design world because it was kind of like my whole life already. And I felt like I was just talking about my ego, and it was not why I was there. I was there to have fun and meet people and just have some clarity and just share, experiences. And so I went over to the pet side, and then slowly, I started to see more rooms pop up. And then I decided I'd create a room, and I started inviting people from all around the world. And that was what was so beautiful about Clubhouse, was the fact that you had people not just from your own country or your own state, your neighbors, but everybody from around the whole world was on Clubhouse. And it gave us an opportunity to meet people like Cristina that I would have never met her if it wasn't for Clubhouse,
Yeah,
I don't think, unless we just knocked into each other if we're on vacation somewhere, either in Spain or somewhere that we love to go, but seriously,
absolutely.
we wouldn't have met each other. And Christina and I we formed this bond that was just so beautiful. And we share our ups, we share our downs, but we just, we've always been there for each other, and we're always there for each other. And it's just like she said, it's been 5 years, and I can't believe it's been 5 years. It's crazy. It's been 5 years, right?
I know, absolutely crazy. And I think once that we got over that period of our lives in which we all think there was a pre-COVID and post-COVID, everyone is going back to this kind of crazy kind of hamster wheel in which we all are, working, 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 and then work and home, and then work, and then mini holidays, and then work. And before you know, 2 years have gone by, and it's like, oh, where's all the time gone? So yeah, as we said, I was obviously blessed to have met you, and I, popped into Clubhouse one day, and yeah, it's been one of the best things that COVID brought us. So we always have to
It
think
really,
about the positive lining.
it really, I always say there's always a positive lining, even behind some of the most tragic moments in our life, or what we think is tragic.
Mm,
It's like there's always something else the universe is trying to share with us. It's
yeah.
always like, before you know it, at the end of the day, all of a sudden you're like, well, wait a second, wow, this came out of that. I never expected this to come out of that. I mean, there's so much that we haven't even caught up on about what's going on with me and all that. But I had an incident that happened to me last June, where I was attacked by an LAPD sergeant. And
Dear me.
it hurt me. It's hurt my hip. But it's been a journey since. But what has come out of it, at the end of the day, there's things I'm learning about myself that I had no idea about. And it's just been an incredible journey. So, you never know what life has in store for you, whether it's, a situation that's really tough for you or really easy for you, or whatever it is. There's always something around the corner that's going to surprise you. So always look for the surprise. I always say, look for the magic and look for the surprise, because it's there. And sometimes we get in our own way of seeing it, because we're so caught
Mm.
up in what we think it should be versus of what it can be. So yeah, so Dr. Christina and I, we started hanging out, and I'm going to, I'm so excited to dive right into your book. Of course, this is
Oh,
one of the things that
thank you.
she shared with us during, just before the pandemic. You had just finished this before the pandemic, or right? Was it just
That's correct. Yeah.
you,
It was literally just to go into the printing house at the time. I think it was actually February 2020, because I wrote it throughout 2018 and 2019, and I finished it by December 2019, and eventually just made the final touches and gave it to some colleagues to read to make sure I didn't say anything crazy in the book. You always doubt yourself. And then basically by January we got to the point in which I said, okay, well, I'm gonna look for different printing houses and see which one works out better financially. And then COVID happened, and and it never was kind of released. And after the first 3 or 4 months, I kind of added a chapter, well, basically an extension to the book at the very end, to actually talk about the crazy COVID times and what it meant for our industry and what it meant for you guys that you've got pets, because obviously the way that we vet at the time was very different. And yeah, it was a a great time for the book to come out, because loads of people actually got dogs at that time, but it wasn't planned that way. But I'm glad that I hope it's kind of served a few people since it
oh,
was released. So
I'm sure it has. We when we were doing Clubhouse in the very beginning, it was a new platform. They didn't allow us to do many things with what we were doing. It was really just an online podcast that you got to listen to people. But as influencers, or people that are bringing this information to the public, we weren't, they didn't give us the right to record. They didn't give us a lot of the rights to the material that we were doing ourselves. So a lot of that
mm,
just got left behind on Clubhouse. But there was one point where they then opened it up so that we could start recording it and actually reposting it to our websites and all that. And so I had actually, by the time COVID was over, I'd had over 400 rooms recorded. And
wow.
yeah, and so I have actually, and on my channel, The Pet's Journey, you can find the new pet parent that Christina and I did 5 years ago. Because what we
Oof.
did It's on there. It's so cute to listen to too. And we, and it was a whole series that we did because we'd get together, like, I think it was like every Monday night or one night a week, we'd get together for an hour and we just go through her book. And because everybody was adopting pets at the time because of COVID, so many people were running out to their local rescue to have a partner during this time. And they were getting all these pets from these rescues. But during that time, being a pet person, you know, and a lot of us being pet people, we could see what was going on. There's a lot to adopting a pet. You want to make sure the pet selects you just as much as you select the pet. Usually it's a union that happens kind of like automatically. And sometimes people will force that and they'd end up with a pet that wasn't really right for them or right for the family and all that. And so those are the things that Christina and I would talk about, is like, when you're selecting a pet, what pet is right for you and your family? And
Mm.
so we really broke down her book. And so this, I always say to everybody, is, it's a must have. It's one to have next to if you're just getting a pet or you just got a pet, grab it, because there's so much information in here, and it's the little stuff that's in here that you think that you don't need, that you're going to find, and you're not going to even realize you found it until maybe days or weeks later. And all of a sudden you'll remember, oh yeah, Dr. Christine was saying this and this and this, and you can grab the book and refer to it. And it's a guide to be the best pet parent. So, definitely you can get this on Amazon. So that's easy for you to grab. And I always tell everybody, grab the book. It doesn't hurt you to have one more thing to read upon and learn from and all that, because there's so much information out there, especially if you're a new pet parent, that it's nice to know that someone's helped you through this process.
Oh, thank you, Michael. That's all very kind that you said. But to be honest, I just, to just explain a little bit more about the book. It's basically my 20 odd years working in practice condensed in a very small book, written with love, with very simple language, chapter by chapter, that you can refer very quickly if you've got any questions about my dog's vaccinations. Obviously depends again as well where you are in the world, because obviously things are going to vary slightly when it comes to the vaccination protocols that they used, but realistically when it comes to emergencies and as Michael very rightly said, having a pet. I've got my cat here with me, by the way. She's part of the the seat tonight. So when having a pet, you have to be aware that this is a commitment for life. This is not just when you go to the shop and buy a teddy bear and then after a while it's like, oh, I don't like it, I'm just going to leave it there. It's a living creature. It needs to be looked after. It needs to be cared for. It needs to eat. It needs to, have the right environment, and it needs medical care when it needs it. So it is a big commitment. And I think you have to be aware of all this and basically realize what kind of time you're going to have available to look after this pet, what's going to happen when you're going to go on holidays, and all those things financially, what the commitments are going to be before you say yes or no. Because once that you get it, then you get it. And if you do your research and you actually learn a bit about what to expect, then it's going to be a smooth ride. But realistically, is whenever you get those impulse buys, oh, we're going to get a puppy, and then you realize that the puppy, you don't have time for the puppy, or the puppy that you've chosen is a puppy that it needs a lot of exercise that maybe you don't have time for. So this is the aim, or this was the aim when I wrote the book, and I hope it still to this day helps people to realize, or to actually learn how to be the best pet parent that they can for their pet. So
And
thank you,
that's what
Michael.
no, and it's so true, Christina. It's like when I browsed through it again this morning just to kind of refresh and just look at the different chapters. And it was funny, I couldn't even see the words, because every time I'd look at the chapter, it would bring back all the memories we had talking about that chapter. It brought me right back to Clubhouse, and I was fantasizing about those moments that we shared, because we shared so much time. I mean, hundreds of hours together for sure. You and I spent
Yeah.
hundreds of hours together on Clubhouse. And one of the things that, and you in here, I'm going to go ahead and do this really quick. We're going to put there you go.
Oh, thank you.
One of the really nice things about the book is, like, there's so much information in there. And like what Dr. Christina just said, do your homework. do your own homework. When you're reading something and you don't quite understand it and you want to know more about it, do some research. There's been, even in the last 5 years since I met Dr. Christina, so many things have changed, and there's new ways people are looking at different things. And I'm going to dive into a couple of those things with Dr. Christina and see where her thoughts are on these things today. But it's just like, it's pretty amazing. It's like there's so much information out there. And if we choose to be that best pet parent that we want to be, we can be. We just have to do the homework. Like Dr. Christina said, it's not an accessory that you grab and you put in your living room and it looks pretty. It needs attention. It needs to grow. It needs to, have the right nutrition. It needs to have the right love and care and the right family. And so her book really breaks it down. And so definitely, you guys, if you guys don't have it, I say definitely go grab it. It's a great read. It's an easy read. I had it next to my bed during the pandemic, and I'd always read through it before we got on. And I'm like, okay, we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about that. And I was astounded because, like, what I know today about pets compared to where I started 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I'm in a total different place on understanding the life of a pet and their requirements and their needs and what it takes to be a pet parent. It's like, we don't personally have a pet right now because we're responsible people and we don't have time for a pet right now. We wouldn't want to put a pet in that environment where they're not getting the love that they deserve. So it's like, it really, it just doesn't even, it just shows you so much about, because like one of the things that you just said too, like a lot of people, when we talk about this, and we used to talk about this all the time, people don't expect this, is like, what's the investment? Right?
Yep. Yep. And I don't think, I mean, investment from the point of view, if you think about buying a puppy, of course, if you're going to buy a puppy, then again, do your homework. If this is the route that you want to take, make sure you go and search for an ethical breeder. And I can't stress that enough, an ethical breeder. And basically what this word means is that someone who's actually doing breeding, taking into consideration all the things that we need to take, taking into consideration that mother and father are actually as healthy as possible, taking into consideration all the tests that they have to do to ensure that they don't have any genetic diseases that they could be passed on from generation to generation, and actually someone that is not there just for the money, is actually someone who really cares about their dogs, and they just want the breed to kind of keep on living, to the best standards that they can. So this is what I mean with an ethical breeder. And there are loads of wonderful breeders out there. There's a lot of breeders that unfortunately they're not that amazing. And there's people that actually make it just for the penny, as we said here. So that's one of the things that you have to do your homework. But another way that you can actually find a pet or a dog or a cat is actually looking for a rescue center. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of pets that they are looking for homes every single day. And I think, sadly, shelters, they're in the States, they're the kill shelter. So sadly, there are loads of dogs and cats that they're actually there, and they're only there for a few days, and perhaps they don't have the opportunity to, or the volunteers don't have the opportunity to kind of advertise that particular dog as well as they would love to, like it would be in a charity setup, because they don't have time. But every dog and every cat deserves a good life. And to be perfectly honest, I wouldn't say in every single occasion, but 98% of the times they ended up there for no fault of their own. They ended up there because they were an impulse buy. They end up there because there was an unwanted litter. They ended up there because maybe there was a medical problem, most of the time not complicated to resolve, such as fleas infestations or even a Demodex infection, and then it could be easily addressed. And I mean, the amount of times that I see young puppies, that absolutely breaks my heart. You've got mum and babies that they are there, and these puppies that they are very young and they're euthanized. I mean, it's just, we're not going to go there because this will be another 3 hours of Clubhouse or StreamYard or whatever you
Right.
want to call it.
We'll be on
But
part 16 of this, right? Exactly. Yeah.
absolutely, for about 3 years. But what I'm trying to say is there's another route. And if you really want to take a pet on, regardless, just think about what's going to be your lifestyle when you're taking the pet, you know, what the financial investment I mean with that is this a small dog? Is this a big dog? How much food is going to need a month? Make that as part of your calculations for your for your monthly outgoings. He's obviously going to need to go to the vet on a regular basis just to get the shots and things like that. Prophylactic care, flea treatments, worm treatments, all this jazz, and obviously put some money aside just in case that your pet gets sick. And ideally, get a pet insurance, which I can't. Again, another episode that we can do, like we did in Clubhouse, to just actually express the importance of having pet insurance, because all of us at some point we are in positions in which money is not flowing for various reasons. And if your pet gets sick and one of those times, and you have to kind of consider putting your pet to sleep because you can't afford treatment versus having the blessing of having pet insurance, this is a completely different scenario, and actually can save the life of a pet for people that they don't have funds at the time. And I've seen it, I've lived it. We do come
I
across
see it all the
this,
time.
sadly,
Yeah, I see it all the
on
time.
a regular basis. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a lady just recently call me, and her doctor's like, "Oh, you've done everything. We've done everything. We tried everything. Why, I think the next thing to do is euthanize your pet." And I was like, we were both like, what? And then that's when she found us, and our formula actually resolved the issue the pet was having, and
Oh, I'm glad to hear that.
yeah, and we were her last call, basically. you
Mhm.
know
Wow.
uh, Her call to our company and finding us was her last. She's like, I haven't tried Eastern medicine, I haven't tried anything like this, let me try this. My doctor's saying nothing's out there. She tried it, and her pet's actually quite well today, and it was just because she didn't give up, and
Mm.
she'd already spent all that, like you're talking, all that money. She didn't have pet insurance, but she was able to afford the vet bills, but still it was just, those bills get so expensive sometimes. And I do want to go back. We have a couple questions coming in here, and we'll address those as they come along. But as we were talking, like as Dr. Christine was saying, there's tons of breeders out there. Do your homework if you are going to buy a pet. Our first go-to, we always say we would love for you to go to a pet rescue and find a pet there, because there's some benefits to it, because sometimes they're already trained. You really see their personality is already developed, and you can really see who they are sometimes, and they're going to pick you out. If you go to a pet rescue, I guarantee you there's going to be one pet there that's going to, you two are going to bond. It's just the
Mm.
way it happens. I see it all the time. But when we're talking about breeders, and this is one thing we've talked about many times, and we always like, because someone in the comment wrote this about backyard breeders, you mentioned it as well, is some people don't understand what a backyard breeder is. And I just like to clarify that sometimes. And this is not like the technical term, but it's an overall kind of give you an idea of what a backyard breeder is. Sometimes what happens is that, especially we saw this a lot during the pandemic, where people are trying to figure out a way to make money, and all of a sudden maybe they had two pets and they actually got together and they got pregnant, and then they ended up with this litter, and they didn't know what to do, and maybe they went to the store to maybe like try to sell them, and they actually sold them and they made some money, and they're like, oh, this is a good idea, we should do this more often. Well, there's a lot to that, because like if those two pets that were bred were of the same family, it's not
Mm-hmm.
healthy. It's so
No.
unhealthy. It's the worst thing in the world, that because like where the pet may look healthy and normal when, as a baby, but as the year goes on, you got to realize their DNA is all messed up by being inbred, and you're going to have a lot of issues going down the line. So a lot of people say, well, I'll save a lot of money by going to a backyard breeder because I get it less expensive. Well, you've got to look at the big price, the investment. That's what I was talking about. When we're talking about that, there's investment in, like, are we going to buy a puppy, or are we going to adopt? But also, what's the long-term investment? How much is it going to cost me per month for food? How much is it going to cost me for insurance? Because you should have insurance. That's the smartest thing to do these days, because it is
Mm-hmm.
offered out there. But the big thing is, like, be careful about if you're going to a backyard breeder, because they just don't, a lot of them, unfortunately, they don't have the integrity, and they don't have the knowledge of the understanding of what they're really doing. Sometimes, they may not even realize the uh the issues that come with breeding family members together, because it's just someone out, somewhere, someone that just happened to have two pets, have cats or dogs and went to the store and actually sold them, like, oh, this is a good idea. It was a good idea to them. It wasn't a knowledgeable idea for them. It wasn't something that they really thought out on, how do I do this right? So be very aware of backyard breeders, because they, it's not that the puppies won't look normal or anything like that. It's just that you're getting yourself into a breed that is not, it's not consistent to what the breeding practices should be.
Absolutely. And at the end of the day, as you very rightly say, is all this DNA mixed of very close linked families, if not, sometimes you hear in brother and sister, which is crazy. That obviously could lead to problems, not just physically, but also behaviorally as well. And you just have to be mindful. And sadly, people that they're prepared to do this just for the money, they don't really care. They don't care.
No.
And they don't care what the long term outcome is going to be. They're just going to get their cash and they say, ta-da, see you later. So realistically, is something that you have to be very aware of. And there are ways and ways to find who ethical breeders are there. And I'm sure here, for example, in the UK where I'm based, we've got the Kennel Club, and we've got another associations and another entities that they would obviously offer you lists of breeders that they've been registered as an official breeder. They have to obviously follow some guidelines of how they do their kind of breeding process. They obviously follow the breed recommendations from the point of view of medical tests to do, but also the facilities where their animals are kept. They need to be cleaned. They need to have the right environmental enrichment. They need to make sure that dogs are exercised on a regular basis, that they've got social interaction with people and with other animals. So, and people that they really love what they're doing, they do all that and they don't have to think twice about it. They are proud of showing you that this is what they do. And they are proud of showing you mom and dad whenever you go and buy the puppy. Oh, this is mom, this is dad. Mom, how beautiful she is. Look at her beautiful temperament that does will show up in the puppies. The problem is whenever you find this, and it's not the puppy's fault, it's not the dog's fault, it's people that they're unscrupulous and they're waiting for the right opportunity to sell you a puppy that they just bred from God knows where in the middle of a motorway station, and then asking you for money. Where's mom and dad? Oh, well, back of the car, there you go, that's the money. Ta-da. And this is where the problem
Yeah.
starts, and is utterly heartbreaking. So if you do this, do your homework, and if you've got any questions and Michael and I can help you, fire them up whenever we are live, because we'll be very happy to reply.
Yeah, we always do, and we always try to get back to you as soon as we can, because these, because sometimes these are like you're right there and you're in that emotional moment where all of a sudden you see a puppy and you're like, oh my God, I love him, but it's not. I don't know if the breeder's right, so don't be afraid to hold off a day and just reach out to us and just let us know what your thoughts are, because like it's really, really important, these the backyard breeders. It's like really to understand it and understand the what you're getting yourself into is so important. And a lot of times, if a breeder is following all the regulations and all the documentations, when they do introduce you to the mom and they do introduce you to the dad, they're most likely going to have a folder of the mom and the folder of the dad and the history, the lineage of all the family and where they come from. It's not just a matter of like, here's the mom, here's the dad, here's the whole family tree here, here's the whole family tree here. You'll see that they don't connect, and then all of a sudden, boom, now they connect down here because that's the new mom and dad. And that's what you want to see in the lineage of the family tree when you're looking at breeders. If you see a breeder and you see mom, dad, and then all of a sudden it's like when you see the paperwork done right and you see the paperwork not done at all, you really see the difference between the two.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I think, Michael, this is an idea for another show, but perhaps we can invite a breeder, a well-respected and ethical breeder, to come into the show and actually explain a bit more in detail what the process is and what to look out for. It would be really interesting to get their input on this subject, but just an idea for the future, because it might help prospective new pet parents if this is the route that they want to take. And I think it's right to do it properly.
Well, and that's and that's the magic of what we do, because we have endless material. We have
Mm.
endless topics that we can cover and we get to share about. So we do take your comments into considerations when we're doing our rooms and when we're setting up our lives, so that we're talking about things that are happening maybe in your life, in your pet's life. And with that, I'm going to jump to Jasmine real quick, who's just adorable. I just met Jasmine just not too long ago, and she was visiting with me and she was talking about her mom's dog. And so this is a question for you, Dr. Christine. Her mom's dog has warts. And he's Jasmine, what type of dog is he again? Will you type that in real quick if you can? Um, it's I think he's kind of like a bulldog, or a medium-sized dog, but he has warts on his, like, on his hind quarter or something like that. And I think the warts are more distracting for her mom's vision than it is for the dog. It's a pit bull. Thank you, Jasmine. Then for the dog itself, tell me about warts in dogs. He's 12 years old. What's your thought about that? Do you get them removed? Do you just leave them alone? Can you use a home remedy? Like, if you like, I know I've had a wart on my foot that I've used a home remedy, and it actually worked better than going to the doctor every other month to have them burn
Mm.
it off. I got one of those little spray cans, and I did it more often than they said to, but I was actually able to get rid of it myself. What's your thought on all that?
Well, I can see where you're coming from. As a dermatologist, I do see lumps and warts and things like that on a regular basis. The problem is, I mean, generally speaking, most of the warts that dogs do get, they could vary in the appearance for sure. Some of them are of viral origin, so viruses that they just basically make this kind of warty kind of thing coming out of the skin. And most of the time, they're innocent, they just sit there, they don't grow much, and they remain like that for the rest of their lives. The problem with lumps and warts in dogs, and I've been caught in the past, is that although most of the time what it looks innocent ends up being innocent, in some occasions is not the same, or is not the case. And there are some particular types of little tumors that they're called mast cell tumors, which I call the great pretenders, because they pretend to look in various
Mm,
ways. Sometimes you've got lumps that are a little bit diffuse. Sometimes they look a little bit like we had maybe a sebaceous cyst, like the little pimples that we get in our face. Some dogs do get sebaceous cysts. And sometimes they look slightly different. And the problem is it's very difficult to distinguish in a lump or in a dog exactly what kind of lump it is until you actually test it. So if you've got a kind of warty, a proliferation of the skin who looks very much like a skin tag, I would say 9 times out of 10, realistically, it is what it is. A skin tag, it might grow, but, realistically, it's unlikely to be anything else that skin tag and just, like a fibrous kind of growth that most of the time is benign. But whenever you see a wart, not every time is something that we think it is. And that's why it's so important to actually get them tested. Because one of the things that happens is the animals get older, like it happens to us, they start developing lumps or bumps in their skin, but also they could become more prone to actually develop little tumors. And these tumors can go, going back to the muscle tumors, from something that is just locally invasive, and most of the time it only sits there, to something really, really nasty that it can actually spread to another organs. So in doubt, it's always worth to check it out. And in this particular case, I wouldn't recommend to do a home remedy without knowing what we are dealing with, because, if it's obviously something a little bit nastier, you're not necessarily going to fix it. But by the time that we try to find out what it is, it might be, a bit bigger and a little bit more difficult to resist. So I hope that answered your question.
Well, yeah, and I think that is important that you did say make sure you know what it is, because it's like I knew what it was because I was seeing a doctor and she was using that freezing thing to freeze it off my foot.
Okay.
And it was just because, like, but the problem that I kept having is, like, the doctor's appointments were so far apart from each other. By the time I went back, the wart had like disappeared a little bit, but then gained strength again because it was too much time in between. And that's when I decided I take it into my own hands. And she even like, when I asked my doctor about it, she's like, Michael, she goes, I even suggest that to some clients sometimes because of the medical time frame that appointments are made these days, that they may want to try to do some of this at home themselves, and so many people are afraid to. She was so excited that I did and that it worked. She was like, oh my God, I love you. She's like, it worked, and it did. It cut a good 6 months of appointments out of my life, of having to go back and have it freezed again and freezed again and freezed again and freezed again, because it would just disappear just a little bit more, but it wasn't, so that's when I decided I'd take it into my own hands, and it worked. So, but like Dr. Cristina said, it's so important that you do know what it is, because it may look like a wart, but it may not be a wart. It could be something completely underneath the skin. It's a sign of something coming that you do want to get checked out to make sure that, it's nothing major that's behind that little bump, whatever it is, opening or whatever it might be. But just as long as you know what you're dealing with, be sure that you're dealing with the right thing. And that's just like us.
Absolutely.
Just like
Absolutely.
us.
We are more similar than we think, to be honest. I mean, obviously, a human doctor might kind of differ on this opinion, but to be honest, for what I can see, we are very similar in many ways.
It's amazing. I mean, just like from all the
Yeah.
doctors I talk to all the vets and everybody that I speak to, it's like, I'm trying this. It's funny because like I had Dr. Karen Black. Have you heard of her? Karen Black. She's
No.
she's pretty big on YouTube. She's not Judy. No, Judy Beckman. You guys, if you guys know who I'm talking about, I just had her I had her on the show a couple of weeks ago, probably a month ago. Anyway, so she's a nutritionist and she's a vet, and she, went from the vet world into the pet world, and now she guest speaks and she talks about nutrition and all that. And one of the things, and it just kicked Serge and I into the gear of like, let's start eating better. If we're talking about this for our pets and letting them eat better, because that's one of our big thing we talk about all the time, is make sure you're feeding your pet the correct food and healthy food. And so Serge and I went on this whole rampage of like, let's start taking care of ourselves a little bit better from the inside out. Here we talk about our herbs all the time for our pets, but what are we doing for ourselves? And we are actually, I take now, which is really funny, is I take this formula twice a day, our longevity.
You need to send it to me as well.
Well, you know what? It's so funny. We've had so many of our pet parents go, oh my God, this has been such a game changer for my pet. Where's ours? And I'm like, well, it's human grade. And we do, I take it myself, and, and Serge takes another one for him. And it's just like, I feel so, I mean, I've been taking this now probably twice a day for the last almost 30 days now. And it has made, and I didn't think I was even going to notice it, but it has made a difference. I feel the energy in my life. Yeah.
It makes sense. I mean, Dr. Kyle put it together, right? He is a human herbalist, and he's a super knowledgeable person about everything to do with herbs. So realistically, most of the time, things that they tend to work from the point of view of the medicinal aspect of things for people tend to work for animals. Not in every case, but the fact that he's actually put that together with his knowledge and expertise, and you can see the difference in animals, particularly in dogs, when you actually living with together. The difference between humans and animals is that you don't have to worry about the fact that they are thinking about what they're taking. There is no placebo effect. If you see what happens, it happens, because they're not thinking, oh, I'm taking this herb cocktail. Oh, I already feel better. Well, you only started last night, so it's impossible. If you think about it technically, that it's going to work that quickly. But in your head, it's already working. Fabulous. I'm delighted that it works for you. If it makes you feel better, beautiful. You look, your skin is glowing, darling. But that's not the point, because it's actually us believing that it's already working when it just physically didn't have the time for that to happen. However, when you see the improvement with a pet, they don't know that they are taking that. So if after 3 or 4 weeks, and normally takes as long as that with herbs to really kick in
Yep.
properly,
Yep.
you see that suddenly their vitality has improved. They are running a bit better. They are not as painful, or their skin maybe it's got a much better glow, or maybe the skin problems that you used to have are improving because we are feeding them better, because we are giving to the body all the macronutrients that they need, plus the medicinal effect of some of the herbs used in various compounds. Of course, that's not down to their imagination, because they don't know they're taking it. So there's a totally valid point, and I'm really glad that it's working for you. And if you've got a couple of spare packages, I'm up for it.
Okay, I'll see what I could do. Okay, I'll have to send you a special message. Okay, but it is, and you did say one thing that we always stress too. It's like, because like we have this one here. It's our yeast formula for fungus,
Hmm.
and we've had people that will buy it, and in 2 weeks they'll want to return it, and we're like, you've only had it for 2 weeks. Why do you want to return it? They're like, well, she's okay. Oh, she's fixed already, or it's gone already. And we're like, no, it's not gone yet. It hides out in their body. We really need to, like, we say month minimum protocol for the herbs to really get in there and start grabbing hold of it. And the herbs don't get rid of it. It just gets them back into balance with your system. We all have yeast inside of our system, and it's part of just our makeup. So we're not going to get rid of yeast, but it puts it in the real balance of how it works. And so when I get people that want to return this, like in 2 weeks, I always make sure that I call them and say, okay, what's going on? Just to make sure there's maybe not a reaction, because we haven't seen a reaction. So I always want to make sure there wasn't a reaction, or see
Mm,
why they're stopping after 2 weeks. And it's a lot of times people just like, they have that mentality, your doctor gives you a bottle of pills. They say, okay, this is like a Z pack and you have to take it for the next 7 days. Well, you get halfway through it and you feel good. You don't finish it. We're supposed to finish it. There's a reason
hmm.
behind it. There's
Yeah.
there's studies and policies and protocols of why they want you to take it for the length. So we say the same thing. So exactly what you said, it doesn't happen overnight. You could have that placebo effect saying, yeah, I feel great. Now with our No More Drama, if you're having anxiety and you take some of our No More Drama, it's likely you are going to feel calm and relaxed within within a half hour. But besides that, on these other issues, it takes a while for the herbs to build up and start working. I always say, just imagine you're releasing a bunch of little soldiers in your body to help your health. You got to give them some time to start grouping together and knowing what areas really need the help first before they move on to the next area, and let them do their job. So yeah, so I'm glad that you brought that up, because some people do think, they're like, oh, I just took it, I feel great, I don't have it any longer. We're like, no, it takes a while. And like, seriously, it's like, I've taken the Forever Young in the past in pill form, but I've never really been dedicated as much as I am now to taking it every single day. And it gives me more energy. My clarity to thought is cleaner. If there's a lot that it actually helps with, and it's all and then when Serge and I are now starting to take each one of our herbs in our packages just for ourselves, and really start studying each herbs and how it works. And when you start to learn how each herb works, and when they're in a formula like this formula, like yeast, you
Hmm.
look on the side of it, and there's like probably 20 different herbs in there.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. And I
And so
think, yeah.
go on.
Sorry, I cut you off.
That's all right. Go on. That's why we're here.
No, no, no. I just wanted to kind of on that point to say that it's not just putting some herbs together because they look pretty, and it's like, oh, this name sounds good with this one, and then, oh, look at this beautiful formula. No, no, no. There is a reason why someone who knows what is doing, and I can't stress this enough, someone who knows what he's doing and he's got the knowledge, is put this combination of herbs together. A, because they all have a medicinal effect on the particular problem that you want to address. And B, because certain herbs could potentially potentiate the effects of some of the herbs that they are together with, therefore producing a much more overall beneficial outcome for the condition that you're treating. And that's the beauty of Michael's and products from the point of view that whenever we look at it, they're actually not being put together by Joe around the corner. It's actually been put together by a very well renowned and very knowledgeable herbalist. And basically, that knowledge that they've got about nature and what nature is offering to us, it, to me, is invaluable. And although I don't practice herbal medicine as much as I would love to on my daily practice because of my setup, I have used herbs with my dermatological patients to help them in the long term, and it does work and it does help. So please take that into consideration. There is no magic potion for any, for one particular disease, but whenever you look at the different conditions that you're treating, it could be really beneficial for your pet as well.
Yeah, and it really is. Thank you for sharing that the way you did. It's like, Kyle, when he first started off, he was just working with human patients, and then he saw the issue with his brother's dog, and then went back to school and learned about the pets and how herbs work with the pets, and made sure there was no danger in any of the herbs with the pets. And he did his homework, and a lot of these recipes are recipes that are thousands and thousands of years old. They've been used by the Asian market for thousands of years to treat these different issues that we have in our lives. Couple things I've been wanting to say. That's Talullah, isn't it? That's on your lap.
Oh yeah, she's gone now, but she
Okay.
spent the first half an hour
Yeah,
sitting
yeah.
in
Okay.
my lap.
I remember. I'm like, oh yeah, that's Talullah. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Right. Okay. And then the other thing too is like, where I was going to say one other thing on that. I guess I'll come back to that when it comes back to me. Oh, I did say real quick, Fat Granny, hello, how are you? This is one of my followers here that I just adore. She helps you. She goes, oh crap, hide the McD burger. And I'm coming clean, you guys. Even though we're eating healthy, we shop healthy, we're really changing our diet. Yesterday I was driving and I just had a craving for a quarter pounder with cheese. And what did I do? I stopped and got a quarter pounder with cheese. So I am just,
Good for you.
you know what? Every once in a while, I think you need it. I think you need a little of the bad to keep up with the good.
Well, we all suffer from this every now and again, like, I really fancy a lot of chocolate. I know I shouldn't, but who cares? I had a bad day at work and I just want to have a good amount of chocolate. It's emergency chocolate, we call it at work. Emergency chocolate supply. You had a shitty day and then you just go and it's like, I need some chocolate.
Exactly.
So, it is what it is.
Got to do what we have to do. One of the things I would love to hear what your thoughts are on this is because I think we even talked about this like 5 years ago. God, it seems like now that we put that 5 years on it, I'm like, God, it seems, well, okay. I know what I was going to talk about. You said 5 years, right? Is that someone had asked me, someone asked me not too long ago, they're like, how long have you been doing this and what prompted you to do this and, do the Eastern herbs for pets or, have an alternative medicine for pets and all that. And I was like, and I thought, and I always had this time frame in my head and this time frame in my head. And I'm like, well, no, Michael, let's really dig into it and see how long it took me to get where we are today. And I started back in the year 2005. And
Oh.
yeah. And I was even shocked when I found that out because I'd always referred it to an event that I did in Malibu where the pet parents they were all, when in the conversations, they were just saying, God, I wish there was something else than just Western medicine. So we had an option. And I thought, oh, that'll be easy. I'll probably find someone. I'll bring them into the next event that we have. And it wasn't easy because after I left that event, I started looking and I didn't find anything out there. And I looked. And I did come across, and I'll say this because it took me a while to find Kyle and just finally say, you're who I've been looking for, and I think that's really beautiful because it was like, I feel like, because Kyle, he started the allergy formula back in 2016 with his brother's dog. And so here Kyle was over here in his universe and I was over here in my universe doing my events and all that. And, I was back in 2004 or 5 for pause for the planet. And it was years and years that I kept looking, and I came across people that had come up with stuff. And, it's almost like backyard breeders, let's say, right? They're like, oh, let's put a little
Yeah.
this in there, a little this there, and this works. And oh, this may work, da 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 da. And so, I had a couple of people say, hey, you'd be great. Can I be your partner? What can we do together? And they just didn't fit. They just weren't the right thing. And I didn't know what the
Mm-hmm.
right thing was. I did not know the right thing until I found Dr. Kyle. And it wasn't until I listened to him, I heard his story, I used his product with my rescues, and I saw what it was doing. It wasn't until then that I knew that that was the right thing that I was looking for. If you would have asked me back in 2004 or 5, is it Chinese herbs you're looking for? I would have not been able to say yes or no to any of that because I didn't know any of it. I had no idea, but it's just so beautiful that, looking back now, since 2004 or 5, so it's like 15 years for me, right? Or 10 years for me, right? 10 years?
Oh, 2005. 20 years. 2005.
Yeah, I'm like something's wrong there, right? See, yeah, so it's like it really took me that long to really come across Dr. Kyle, to because we met in 2019.
Oh,
And
okay. Okay.
yeah, and so that's when we met Dr. Kyle, and then we started doing our production and repackaging and expanding the line and all that. And then that's when the pandemic hit, and that kind of like took our company in a different direction than we started. But it's all great. And then you guys, here's a YouTube station for Dr. Kyle. You guys could check out his channel as well. But it was because of my tenacity and really wanting to find the right thing for somebody, for the pets, that it took me so long to find Kyle. And it's like, seriously, I feel like the universe brought Kyle to me and me to Kyle. And it just did this with us because he was the right person. Because I had seen all the CBD stuff that was out there. We looked at the CBD, we tried some of the CBD stuff that, we were looking at working with the CBD stuff, but then that just ended up being the wrong thing for us. We just needed to stick to the Eastern Chinese herbs. And that's what we do. That's all we do is Eastern Chinese herbs. People always talk about the CBD stuff that's on the market. There's a lot of it out there. CBD is great. The cannabinoids are great for us, for your pets. But for me, it's kind of like the thing that I found for my personal experience with the CBD stuff that's out there. Some companies claim that it does a lot when it's just one little product.
Yeah.
And where our product, each one of our products is actually dedicated to an issue of a common issue a pet has. So it's like, so for me to see that CBD is going to like help with anxiety, joints, and health, and aging, and all these, a whole list of things and everything. And I just said, it's just not the right thing for me, and then when I found out some CBD companies actually added THC to their formulas when they say calming, and that was the drug that they would add, which is the natural drug for CBD to be in. But it was a drug once again, and we didn't want our formulas to have any drugs. We don't put drugs in our formulas. We don't put anything except the herbs. So it's all natural. But it's interesting all that I've learned. And so talking about all that we've learned, I'm getting circled back here. Okay. We used to talk about this, and it's, and I hear this changing all the time, and there's something new that came up into my window just recently. And I want to share it with you and hear if you've heard about it over there. And everybody, once again, we're talking to Dr. Cristina. She's over in Liverpool. Okay. And is that what we consider across the pond for me?
I think so. You're definitely across the pond for me.
For you, right? Because usually I think it was like, like London's across the pond, or or like one of the neighboring.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sorry because I know the States is so massive. So possibly the whole UK
oh my God.
will fill. It's massive. The UK will fill in the state of Florida. This is in my head, which is most likely not right. But just to give you a rough idea, Liverpool is about 5 hours drive. Well, 4.5 to 5, depending on how fast you go. 4.5 to 5 hours driving from London. So for some people, maybe in Texas, that's very much like visiting,
Houston from
like the
hell. Right.
supermarket.
Exactly. Right.
Exactly. For
Exactly.
us,
Right.
it's like, wow, I'm going to London, so I have to pick a picnic and then just stop. I love driving, so it doesn't bother me. But yeah, everything is kind of a bit of a smaller scale. But yeah, it's the northwest of the UK, and the UK is a little bit like a triangle. So if London is on the southeast, we're on the northwest. So yeah,
Yeah.
just as
So,
an idea.
but I
Yeah.
just wanted to share that with everybody that, so here, we're like so far away from each other, and here she's spending this time with us. And that's what's so beautiful. And that's what I learned with Clubhouse,
Mm,
being able to have these people from around the world and have these experts from around the world to be able to share this information. Okay. So here's my question. Okay. You ready?
sure, I'm ready.
And we talked about this, and I think it's in your book in a couple of places about when do you spade and neuter,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And one of the things we would talk about is a lot of people used to think like right away, and
Mm-hmm.
that's not necessarily the case any longer.
No, it's not.
And where that came from, I don't know where that
Yeah.
originally came from, but it is something that continues to change. And, I would love to hear where you feel that it is today. So I'm not putting words into your mouth, so we share with the audience. Where do you think we are?
Sure.
Like, what's the time frame for you today?
So, in terms of why it was done pre-puberty, when I started working in practice over 20 years ago, it was because it was the belief that it was better to neuter it before they reach puberty to minimize,
Uh-oh, we might
the
have lost her
appearance
for a
of those
second. Let's see if
signs.
we get her back.
Oh, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, yeah, it just spun out. We're good.
Good. Okay. So when I started working in practice many, 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 many years ago, I'm quite happy to say 20 years ago plus. But back then, we used to neuter pre-puberty because we thought at the time it would be the right time frame before the animal reached puberty and started showing signs of puberty, to make sure we eliminated that possibility for various reasons, because you didn't want to have the behavioral effects of that, because you didn't want to have the potential issues from the point of view, particularly with males, escaping, trying to find females, etc., etc. Over the last 20 years, the veterinary world, in terms of research and obviously knowledge, has kind of moved on just as much as in the human medicine world, if not more, because obviously the more capability that we had to do and opportunities to study our population or patient load, the more that we've seen what's happened in the past. And what they found, looking at retrospective studies, what happens to those dogs that were neutered early versus those dogs that were neutered once that the puberty had been completed and they were classified as adult dogs, is that the sexual hormones had a knock-on effect on the development of various systems in the body. So dogs that they were neutered, just male dogs, for example, they found that those ones that they were neutered post puberty, so once that they reach the adulthood stage, they had stronger tendons and stronger ligaments, and they were less likely to have orthopedic issues when they were older. They also found that dogs that they have been neutered post puberty were a little bit more, they were a little bit less puppy like, and they were a little bit more, how could I put this? Mentally, what's the right word? Mentally, not stable, but mentally
Developed,
developed and kind of rounded. That's the word, mentally rounded. Because
balanced,
obviously,
right?
balanced, yeah. Because realistically, what happens, like if you think about humans, puberty, and it's been well established and it's researched that during the puberty, our brain changes on a daily basis, and it's all the hormonal influence that is actually changing various regions of the brain, etc., etc. And there's been the same studies that are done in dogs, and they've realized that it's very much the same. So testosterone and estrogens, of course, but has a positive effect on how the brain develop some molds into the next stage in their life, into the life stage of adulthood. So taking all that into consideration, this is where veterinarians all over the world, they have changed their ways in terms of when to neuter your pet, from the very simple reason this is actually an elective surgery. You're not doing it because your pet is sick, you're not doing it because it's an emergency, you're doing it because you're choosing to do it. Therefore, there's no specific time frame that you have to choose in order to, or you have to follow in order to do it. You can potentially delay it or kind of make it a little bit earlier. Saying that, whenever we are actually looking into a charity setting, and I don't know again what is like in the States, but for example, here in the UK, they tend to do it later on in life when they can, but in some occasions, for example, with cats, sometimes they do it before, when they are when they are basically slightly older kittens, maybe a little bit early than we would like them to be done, but they want to do it because they want to make sure they are neutered before they find a new home, because they don't know what's going to happen with that cat. And obviously, from the point of view of pet control population, they choose to do it that way. So it's a bit of a controversial subject, but I would say most of us are actually doing it post puberty now. And the reasons being is because we want to improve the health of our pets, really, and our patients.
Which, yeah, and so yeah, so that's exactly what we're hearing, and this is something because like what you just said, a lot of people, like what they want to jump the gun with the kittens so that the kittens are fixed before they go into an environment where they're going to get pregnant really quick, because we don't know where they're going
Mm,
potentially, and all that. So that's why one of the reasons too, and it's like, we got to like outweigh the like, you know, how can we like not I don't know, they're like almost, it was kind of like China, like China always had these bans on how many kids people could have or not have or whatever, and they've lifted that, and that whole
mm.
change and all that, like pet control, I'm saying. But the big thing I just heard too, what have you heard this, that they're doing this here now, and I don't know if they're doing this there, is now with the male dogs, is they're doing vasectomies.
Oh, I don't think it's something that is actually being started here. We do vasectomy in ferrets, but the reason being is because they need the testosterone in order to kind of help the females to overcome their estrogen, or basically their heat. But we're not with male dogs. I don't see what would it be the point of that,
But
But hmm, well, I can see the point of that. Yes, because theoretically, testosterone can also have some beneficial effects even during adulthood, and that's why they're. It's complicated. It's
Yeah,
basically it's a
well,
bit
that's it's
complicated, but
complicated, but it makes, and it's exactly for what you're talking about. It's about, the
mm,
testosterone being there for the growth of the bones later on in life, and to keep
mm,
them healthy, because like you said, it's an elective surgery. It's not one that's a necessary surgery, and people are doing it for, usually for birth control reasons or aggressiveness. Sometimes they feel like it's aggressiveness with dogs or whatever it might be. But yeah, so yeah,
mm.
I heard this. I mean, I just heard this maybe like 2 months ago, that they're doing vasectomies versus actually completely, neutering them, right?
Okay, okay. I mean, my point on that is that whenever we actually offer neutering, especially with male dogs, is not just because of the procreation side of things or potentially aggressiveness. There is a medical reason as well for that. And is if you think about benign prostatitis leading to obviously problems as they grow older, whenever the prostate becomes really big. And then obviously they can have problems with urination and other issues as well, potentially infections as well. There is a very high link, or there is a very direct correlation to the testosterone production. So what we normally tend to find is that dogs that they've been neutered, we don't tend to find issues with their prostate. However, when they haven't been neutered as they grow older, they suffer from benign prostatitis. And the treatment that we tend to use in situations like this, it's castration. So we obviously do chemical castration first to address the symptoms and obviously reduce the size of the prostate, and then obviously address to make sure everything is okay. And then we just move on to the kind of long-term castration. But there's sometimes these things do happen, and you never know. It might kind of come over here. I don't know actually. I don't know. Well, well. I have to learn a little bit more about what the
It's
benefits
new.
of
But
vasectomy versus
I
castration, but
Right. Yeah. What are the difference and all that? It's like, they're still getting hormones one way, but they're not the other way. And it's helping them here, but it's not helping them. Yeah. It's just, it
yeah.
was just interesting. It was something new to me that I just is like, and I've talked to other people and it's new to them as well. And I didn't know if, you've heard of it. Like you haven't really heard of it over there yet, for this reason. So, but yeah, but
Mm.
the real big thing, everybody that's in the room today is like what we're talking about. It is something that, vets have their eye on and they're they watch it really closely these days versus where they used to be like, oh, they just turn, it used to be like, I don't know, for some reason, I like hear 6 weeks in my head or something like that.
Sorry, I was just sending a message to search and I completely missed your question. Apologies. What
Oh,
did
that's
you just
okay.
say?
Oh, no, no, no. I just saw that. I'm like, oh, what's going on over there? Uh, no, now where was I? I'm like, where is surgery? Um, God, what was I just talking about? Da, da, da. See, I totally lost
I
it.
don't know. I'm
You just,
sorry. I should have been paying attention. This
no,
is what
no,
it
no.
teaches you. You shouldn't be writing in the chat whenever you're listening to someone.
No,
Sorry.
it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's just, it's just something new for me. And here, Jill's going to remind us here. This is a question for the doc. Oh, here, Jill's got a question here. Let's see here.
Oh, okay. Neutron after 6 weeks. And there's another question about what does she think of cytopine injections for dogs? Okay, well, you touch one of my favorite things to talk about, so I'll be delighted to answer this question. I'm a
Yes.
dermatologist, so I do use cytopine quite frequently with my patients. I love cytopine. I love cytopine. I'm a cytopine girl. However, and the reason being is cytopine works in a way that some of the drugs don't. Well, basically, cytopine is a monoclonal antibody, so technically is not quite the same of any of the other drugs that we're using whenever we are using we are treating dermatological patients. Um, in essence, cytopine, what it does, it blocks the reaction of the body whenever it's exposed to an allergen. So realistically, you are stopping the cascade of reactions and how the skin is going to be itchy and inflamed before it happens. The problem with cytopine is not necessarily suitable for every patient and it doesn't work for every patient because when it comes to dermatology, each patient is his own world. So in dermatology, in veterinary dermatology, and I believe it's exactly the same in human dermatology, we tailor the treatment to the patient, not we tailor the patient to the treatment. So what this means is that I might have 3 dogs that they suffer from atopic dermatitis. You might find that 3 dogs are treated in a slightly different way. Some of them will have cytopine and they will have a combination of various shampoos and maybe some omega-3 fatty acids. My patient number 2, cytopine wouldn't be suitable for my patient because his atopic dermatitis is a bit more intense to start with. I might start with a different type of drug, control the inflammation, and I might explore the cytopine once that everything is controlled. But it might not work very well for my patient because, realistically, we have more of an inflammatory reaction in his case or in her case. So potentially maybe cytopine is not the best fit. And you've got another patient in which basically the cytopine wouldn't work whatsoever. So for various reasons. So when it's possible to use, and regardless of the financial side of things, I love my cytopine, but there is not the only tool that we use in a situation in which we've got a dog with allergies. Because basically a dog that suffers from allergies, we need to look at the dog like if it was a house. And the 4 pillars that they are supporting that house are the various things that they are supporting this dog. So one of them would be keeping the skin very clean, and then we need to use shampoo therapy for that. The other thing it would be to make sure this dog doesn't get exposed to ectoparasites such as fleas or another little creatures that it can make the skin itchy and inflame and angry. Then we need to obviously control the itchiness, and this is where the cytopine comes along. And the other thing is obviously we need to improve the skin barrier, and this is where all the ceramides and other compounds such as omega-3s, fatty acids, and things like that come along. So it's the combination of all this which is actually going to help the dog to be in the best shape possible. But answering your question, in essence, yes, I love my cytopine. And I don't get a penny by the company that is producing the Cytopoint, disclaimer, but I love it.
And see, now I'm going to play devil's advocate. You know me here. Okay.
Okay.
We have now endless pet parents taking their pets off of Cytopoint with our formula because it's all natural. It's all organic, all holistic.
Yep.
It's not a chemical. It's not building up in their system. It's not like ours gets to the root of the cause and really works on why the allergy is happening versus it masking the allergy. Right. And Cytopoint is kind of like has that chemical, like you were talking about, that kind of like masks the itching before the itching starts, kind of, right? Is that how you said it?
It basically blocks the receptor where the
Receptors.
allergen, where the allergen lands. And once that the receptor is activated, then the receptor is obviously going to send a signal to another cell, which is going to send a signal to another cell. And then basically the cascade of the inflammatory process will start. Yeah. So what the Cytopoint does is actually is taken, if you imagine that the receptor is like this and the allergen will land here. Okay. So let me just say this. This is the Cytopoint. Blocks the receptor. So whenever the Cytopoint comes, the allergen comes, can't go in there because it's blocked. So that's how it works.
Okay.
Exactly. However, going back to your formula, when we're talking about allergies, most of the time, there is an underlying reason. And the reason is obviously a reaction to certain environmental allergies most of the time that they're causing this problem. Whenever you actually addressed and balanced the immune system, some of these allergen reactions calm down. And I think that's why herbs can work in this particular type of thing. And that's what I was referring to before when I was talking about, my very basic knowledge of veterinary herbalism, and how useful these herbs can be. Because realistically, they might not work immediately. It will take 3 to 4 weeks for them to kick in. But in the long term, was that you control the initial reactions and everything else could help to minimize the clinical signs to the point in which the body might not go so crazy when there is exposed to the allergen that at first it could have caused the reaction. And I think that's why potentially healthy paws, can be a very useful tool to manage these conditions. And I said to Michael before, and again, disclaimer, not pay me anything to say this, but if I had healthy paws, here in the UK, I would potentially put some of my patients on it. Unfortunately, it's not available yet, but, I think it would be a really good tool to use. Now, the advantage of Cytopoint is, from the point of view of side effects, if you compare it with another drugs, is actually quite innocuous to a degree.
Okay.
But once that you stop using the Cytopoint, you don't have to do a wean-off period. It disappears of the system. It's a monoclonal antibody. It's gone. The body deals with it. It's a protein. Woo, gone. So you can, potentially start with, the Healthy Paws combo, all these amazing herbs that they've been put together, and continue with the Cytopoint, because unfortunately these herbs, they're not going to work overnight. But as time goes by, you possibly will find that the Cytopoint action will last longer, but it might not necessarily means that it just lasts longer. Is that might mean that the dog doesn't really need the Cytopoint to that degree anymore, because the immune system has balanced itself. And that's the beauty of using herbs for various clinical conditions. So on that subject, I completely agree with you. So, but I do love my Cytopoint. Well, so it can be really useful.
Well, of course you do, because you're a dermatologist and it works.
Yeah.
It's a chemical that works, and it's been around for a long time. It's been tested and it works. And that's what's so beautiful, is the fact that, we have that opportunity to make those choices on what we do with our pets. And like Dr. Christina
Mm.
said, if we were there, she would definitely have our whole kit. I know she would, inside of her office. Just as a friend, she would have it there, just to just make sure she's trying
Mm.
everything, give me pointers or whatever, because it's like, a lot of the veterinarians clinics that we have here in the States is owned by VCA, which is now owned by Mars Pet Company.
Mm.
Okay. Which is really been a big slap in the face for a lot of veterinarian offices, because here you have doctors that are so committed to taking care of the well-being of the pets, and then the parent company is all about making money off of pets, you know and they've like done some changes inside of the company now that a lot of the veterinarians aren't very happy with. And I hear this all the time about like their rules and regulations of like what they can suggest, what they can recommend, and how they have to, what they have to sell and all that. And it's become a real
It's
business.
wrong.
It's wrong,
Yeah,
right?
it's wrong. It's
It's
wrong.
taken out, it's taken away the personal touch from the doctor to the patient, basically. But it is what it is. It's what we deal with here in life, and this is
Mm.
our life. I deal with it in my wellness as well. But what we're able to do now, it's like, we are working on getting it to the UK. We're working on getting it to Canada, but there's so much. I mean, I didn't realize how much red tape there would be. Yeah,
And
we could
more
submit,
now.
yeah, and more now, right? As I'm fighting some freight coming in right now with this company. It's driving me nuts today. It was like one of those things. I'm like, what is all this shit? And it's like, well, thank you, Trump. Um, but anyways, but this is where, because we are here in the United States and we do have our formulas, you get to have a choice here whether you want to go holistic or you want to go Western medicine. As long as you're giving your dog the best care that you feel is the best care that you want to give them, that's the most important thing. That's where that's ground zero, you know?
Absolutely. And I think there's also a point to make. The thing is, not, sometimes you can use both.
Yeah.
And herb can be extremely useful for the management of chronic conditions. But sometimes, whenever you've got an acute problem to deal with, herbs are not quick enough. You have to address this issue. And I think, and there are veterinarians out there as well as they are here. And I'm a holistic vet, if you want to call it that way. But I'm a clinician. If I've got a dog that is literally shredding his skin to pieces, I'm not going to reach for the chamomile. I'm going to give this poor dog some steroids so he can actually
Ex-
breathe,
Breathe for it.
But
Yep.
absolutely, would I use the chamomile? At the right time, of course, I would introduce the chamomile. I might just suggest to just bathe him with some chamomile because it's great for the skin and it's going to heal the skin, when you've got wounds and things like that, providing that the dog is not allergic to chamomile, of course. But, what I'm trying to say is just an example that realistically, there is an opportunity in which both medicines can work together. And I
I,
think that's the beauty of obviously having knowledge and talking to the right people in order to get the information and look after your pet the best you can.
Yeah, and then like what you were talking about, like, because it does work, Cytopoint works pretty instantly, is a lot of times what we see with our formula is people are, their pet's already been on Cytopoint and they want to make the transition to be more natural with their pet. So they've already had that going on with their pet. So they're using ours and giving ours time to start working before they get rid of the Cytopoint out of their pets, medical toolbox from their vet. Then they switch over to the holistic toolbox. But yeah, there's a reason. There's ways of doing all this, and you just, once again, doing your homework, reaching out, asking us, which way should I do this, which way should I do that. It's always, That's why we're here. That's why I have this channel, you guys, is to be able to bring people like Dr. Cristina and all my other friends from around the world to be able to bring here so we could bring today's knowledge, because tomorrow's going to change. You know, it always does. There's something new is going to pop
Mm,
up and we think we know it all and we don't know it all. But, you know, as long as we stay on top of it and we have people like ourselves that are here to actually share this information with you, is to be able to like say, hey, yeah, I know, your dog's been on Saddle Point for how long? 6 months. You want to try something holistic. Let's transition them into our itchy scratchy formula and get them off the Saddle Point. And you'll know within that month after you get them transitioned whether it's going to work for them or not. And if it works for them,
mm-hmm,
we'll be happy that it's going to work for them because it's going to be natural for them. If it doesn't, and then there are those times where like during the seasons too, because like there may be a season like here right now we're just hitting spring and all of a sudden the flowers are starting to bloom and we're seeing tons of people starting to order our itchy scratchy right now, and it's because allergy season's starting to hit right now. So if you don't get ahead of that curve, something like Side Point may be beneficial for you to jump on immediately just to get rid of that
absolutely.
crazy, the itchiness
Mm-hmm,
and all that's going on, so that you can transition them into the natural way. But once again, we don't want our dogs or our cats to be suffering. So, and
mm.
that's why we have our experts. We always say, people are like, Michael, what do you think about vets? Vets are part of our toolbox. They are us.
Well,
We can't do this
yeah,
without our vets. So we're not here. We're never here slamming a vet. We're never here saying, don't go to the vet. Vet is your number one person in your toolbox that you want to make sure you have the right vet working with your family. So always, your toolbox should have your vet, us, maybe a groomer, maybe, there's so many
mm,
different people that you have for your pet that's inside your toolbox. So you just want to be able to like have that toolbox is well rounded so that you're giving nothing but the best to your pet. And
absolutely. Sorry, Michael. I've just literally said that there was a comment about, I'm wondering how is best defined integrative, functional, or holistic. Um, I will have to look at it to be a specific in a dictionary, so I don't want to, say the wrong thing. Potentially integrative because we are integrating, a couple of modalities of medicine into our clinical management of that particular case. Functional, yes, because it needs to function. Otherwise, there's no point to use it. But we have to give the time frame of the different things, and you know, don't expect each scratcher to work in 48 hours because it won't. But realistically, it will work in 3 or 4 weeks. But we need something to actually address the issue. And then holistic, yeah, because we're actually looking at the whole. We are not treating the body. We are not treating the skin specifically as an isolated organ. We are looking at the whole, and is the whole body, and in the body everything is interconnected.
right,
If we look at the microbiota of the skin, you're going to find that the microbiota of the skin is actually directly related to the microbiota in the gut. So you've got good gut, you've got good skin in terms of defending the skin from infections and things like that. So it's all interconnected, and that's the beauty of physiology. That's the beauty of the human and the animal body. That's the beauty of nature. It's so clever. It is so well designed. It's such a piece of amazing engineering that I think if engineers will put their brains together and create a machine, I don't think it can be as perfect as the body. So,
yeah.
I would say that potentially that would be the integration of all those three aspects in the medical approach, in my opinion, would be, a good way forward.
Well, yeah, and that they all work together, in harmony, because it's all that
Hmm.
is so important that it's in harmony and you're allowing the harmony to be natural and not um force, let's say. Jill she had another question for you. What type of shampoo do you recommend for your pets with allergies?
Well, I'm gonna say the answer that I don't necessarily like to hear when I was on whenever I ask one question, but it depends.
It
It
depends.
depends.
Right.
It depends. And
It
I hate
depends.
saying this. It depends because it depends if your dog is suffering from any bacterial overgrowth, any yeast overgrowth. It depends if your dog has got short or longer coat. Generally speaking, that doesn't really have a major impact. But if your dog's skin is pretty well controlled and basically you just want to support the skin and keep it clean, there are some specific shampoos that they are designed for atopic dermatitis for dogs that they suffer from allergies on a regular basis. I won't say any particular brands because there are loads of them in the market. If you research and you Google, if you just basically go for shampoos for dogs with atopic skin disease, you're going to have a large quantity there. And they're all pretty much the same. They're basically formulated with very safe and kind ingredients to the skin. And some of them, they actually have extra ceramides and things like that to actually protect the skin barrier and obviously help to kind of keep the skin together. So answering your question, that's basically the basic tool that we use in dermatology, but obviously it very much depends on what else is going on in the skin. So sorry, I can't be a bit more specific, but hopefully that
Well,
helps.
and it's fun that this question came up, is that, when I was talking about Judy Morgan, that's her name. Judy Morgan is her name. When we were talking about different shampoos and different, we were on for a while, and we talked about all different things that she really loves to like introduce to parents that are natural, that are organic. And, because already we have so many toxins in our home, as we just, from our shampoos to what we do with our laundry, all there's so many toxins that we don't even realize that's inside of our own home that we breathe ourselves all the time. So the least amount of toxins you can have, the healthier hopefully your environment's going to be. So with that, so we were at a farmer's market a couple of weeks ago, and there was a guy there that was making his own soap. And so, and I'm always looking at different ideas, and, because I get questions from people all the time, like this question right here, what's shampoo, right? And so I went to him and I had a conversation with him, and he showed me different soaps, and he explained to me how he made them. I can't remember it, so I don't want to kind of quote it, but how lye and all this other stuff works together, and what creates the soap, and why some soaps work and some don't, and so we went through all this stuff. And so he gave me one bar to try, and I brought it home, and it had a really fun smell to it, right? I liked the smell of it, right? And the color was kind of like a charcoal black, and that's kind of like my color. So I'm like, okay, that's my soap. So I'm going to get this. So I got, and he called it an end piece because it was like the piece that's like one of the last pieces cut off. So, and he charged by the pound. So I said, well, let me just try this one little piece this week and let's see how it works. So I brought it home. And the one thing I didn't like was that, because like it's full body soap, it's shampoo. He says it's great for shampoo. It's great for your skin. It just strips all the stuff that builds up on our skin and in our hair and all that from the different shampoos and conditioners. It just really gets down to the healthy part of your skin and your hair, right? How all that was said, really, I don't know, but that's kind of what I took away from it. So I took it, but every time I'd use every time I use it to shampoo my hair, if it got in my eye, it stung. And I'm like, oh, I don't like this. So I went back to him this weekend and I said, okay. He remembered me and we talked about it. And I sat there and I said, I really don't, I said, my only complaint is that if I wash my face or if I'm washing my hair and I'm not careful and keep my eyes shut, my eyes sting. And he goes, well, that's because of the smell. He goes, it's the oil that's inside the soap that, you like this soap because it smells a certain way. It's because we put an oil in it. Right. He's like, well, let me give you a piece that doesn't have oil in it, that doesn't have a smell. And so now we just picked it up yesterday and I just showered with it for the first time today. There was a little sting, but nothing like it was before. And I think I was being a little more relaxed with keeping my eyes kind of like slightly open to see if it would sting and all that. And and I told him, I said, my whole idea is like, if it's good for us, it's got to be good for our pets, and so I'm looking for something. I don't care how the pets, how it smells for the pet. I want something that's going to be healthy, and holistic. And he said that this particular soap he sells to pet parents all the time because it is all natural. It's all organic. It doesn't have all the chemicals, and it just cleans the skin and gets the skin soft. And so we'll see what happens. So it's funny that this came up, this question, but it's like I'm always looking for something like this that's out there, because you do see when you do your homework, Jill, do your homework. We talk about this all the time, because like Christina was saying, it's like you can look online and you can see probably 25, if not 50, if not 100 different types of pet shampoos out there. Look at the ingredients, really educate yourself on the ingredients, because like if it has tons and tons of ingredients and tons of stuff added to it, I
And
kind of
smell. They
yeah.
put the smell not for the pet, they put the smell for us. So always remember that.
Yeah, so do your homework on that one, because I think that there is like so important. Now, I know because you're right now you're at 9:30 your time, and
Yes,
I
that's
wanted
right.
to hang out a little bit after our show. So I just want you to make that call like when you're ready to jump off, so you could close out your night. You've had a busy day. We've been on for about an hour and a half here. How's your time right now? I want to at least have 10 minutes to you by myself.
Oh, thank you. Well, I would love to. I mean, when it comes to skin, I could talk for hours, but I think I can see that there is a question there, so I'm going to answer that one very quickly.
Yeah.
My clients usually, okay, no, don't get in a scratch. Is this breed prone to skin conditions? Um, Good question. I think Shih Tzus tend to be quite prone, in my experience, to develop something that we call a yeasty overgrowth. Basically, yeasts that they go on a bit bold, and they just start growing all the time. So, answering your question, 9 times out of 10, and this is what we were talking about before, there is an underlying reason for it. So even though that it's on raw food, it doesn't necessarily mean that it might not suffer from a food intolerance, okay? Because not everything that is to do with food allergies is due to carbohydrates. Some dogs are actually allergic to certain types of proteins, and there's a lot of cross reaction between proteins, minefield. Nowadays, even the experts, they still develop and they still discover more and more cross reactions that we didn't know about. I was listening to a webinar by one of the dermatology gods that is actually in doing this kind of research on a regular basis, and it was actually kind of showing us more epitopes that they're actually interacting with one another. It can cause cross reactions, so it is quite complex. But it could well be that this particular dog suffers from atopic dermatitis, which in other words means that they're allergic to certain things in the environment. It could be tree pollens, it could be grass pollens, it could be weed pollens, it could be house dust mites. And as a secondary issue, because the body's reacting and the skin is becoming inflamed, because there is obviously an allergic reaction, that will change the balance on the skin and potentially affect how well the skin is defending itself against the overgrowth of certain bugs. And in this case, I tend to find with Shih Tzus, they are quite prone to get yeasties. So
Yeah.
again, I would suggest to attend, ideally to go to a dermatologist. If that's not an option, just go to your vet, and obviously make sure that there is nothing else going on. Each scratchy formula, the yeast that we were talking about with Michael, by all means, you can get it into the cocktail because it will take a few weeks to work. Um, but yeah, that needs to be investigated a little bit more in detail. Make sure the dog doesn't have any fleas, which is obviously another issue that can make things worse when we are dealing with an allergic patient. So that would be my answer. But yeah, no, thanks for your question. Very useful.
Yeah. Thank you. And it's like it's interesting. We have a package. Look at our bundles for your friend. We have one called Licks and Love. We've now got some new packages, and what that does, and it's smart. And I try to bring this to the attention of a lot of people, and I don't know how else to do it, but this is what I'm going to share right here. So we have this formula here. This is our topical. Okay. So like when you said that, your friend's dog is missing hair in certain areas and it's really irritated and all this would be for the skin. This is our topical. It's called Itchy Scratchy
Mm.
Topical Balm. Okay. Then the yeast is number one to get into check. I call this right here, I tell everybody, our itchy scratch. Here we go. Okay. Our itchy scratchy and our yucky fungus. I call this our Batman and Robin. These two together are the dynamic duo. The fact that these two work so well together, having these two, because a lot of it's about allergies, but also we also have to get the yeast. So these two working together, fighting the yeast, it's been just a game changer for so many of our clients. And and it's like we're now 5 years into this now, and we've learned a lot, and we see what works, what doesn't work, and we can see when it's not working and why it's not working. And and a lot of times it's, we see that there's a lot of user error, just because, like, I know me, when my doctor gives me medication and they say take it for 3 weeks, I'll take it for a week, and I don't want to take another one, and I just will stop it. I get that mentality from being from this side of it now. It's like, no, you have to do a month minimum with this. Okay. This is so important. But if you get the Licks and Loves um, package, you'll get these two, and this one is almost free. So you're basically 3 products for just the cost of 2 products. Because, like, if you just buy these two and people just buy these two all the time, they're missing out on this last little element that is really wonderful for their skin. So, take a look for that, you guys, because it's basically, you're going to get that value for free. So it's a smart package to have. Um, I know. So I was talking to Christina. She is, ready to call it a night. I'm going to go hang out with her for 10 minutes afterwards, you guys. So with that, I just want to say, everybody, thank you for being here. Thank you for meeting one of my dearest friends here in the world. Um, it's just, it's wonderful when you get to meet people when you least expect to meet people. And it's just so special that, we've been friends now for over 5 years now. And it's just to be able to be on a live like this, where you are, and I am where I am, and we're so thousands of miles away from each other, but able to share this information and bring this love to everybody, because this is my goal now. It's like, I've learned, where I want to be in the pet world right now is I want to start bringing as much information out there to the pet owner, so that the pets can have the best life possible, so the pet owners can learn something maybe they haven't learned yet. So you guys always stay tuned. We'll be talking about food here shortly. I've got another friend coming up here shortly. This week, I think I'm going to have him on. His name is John Waterhouse. Do you remember John?
Oh, good old John. Oh, I'm so
Yeah.
happy he's coming to spend time. Oh, he's lovely. You
Yeah.
guys are going to be up for a treat. He is amazing. He is a fantastic veterinarian and also amazing sports vet. So he knows so much. So please, if you get the chance to kind of join Michael when John comes along, you're definitely gonna love that chat. He's a really cool guy,
Yeah,
honestly.
he's super, super cute. I had a client that was looking for a brace, so I texted him really quick, and he's like, "Oh, mate, how are you? Haven't talked to you in a long time. Good to talk to you today." And I'm like, "Okay, we got to catch up." He's like, "Let's catch up." Yeah, super sweet guy, but just, like Christina was saying, it was like his specialty is, like, Christina's in dermatology, his is in orthopedics, and what you learn from him is just what I've learned from him, and I continue to learn from him is, like I learned from Christina, is just amazing, just to continue my education and just knowing what is the best out there, or at least what we think the best is for right now. We do our best here to bring you as much information as clean as possible, so you can make a choice yourself. So with that, everybody, I want to say, Christina, it was so nice that you joined us tonight. Thank you so much. And I would love to, I'm starting to do that thing where I'm starting to do shows the same time every week, so think about that. If there's a time slot you want to do this like every other week, people would love to hear from you. They would love to, just have you in their back pocket as part of their toolkit. And
Oh,
everybody,
thank you.
if you're out there and you don't have her book, Amanda, can you put the link back up if you have it really quick to her book here? You guys can get this on Amazon. Okay. The New Pet Parent book. Grab this. This is a great book to have beside your bed. And when you're reading, you can make notes in here. I have one copy that I just have notes on all these different things. I'm like, and notes from, I should pull that out and just say, oh, remember we were talking about this. I asked you about this. So, grab this, especially if you have,
Thank you.
and if you have a friend that's getting a pet for the first time. This would be a great gift, you guys. I mean,
Absolutely.
this is like the
Absolutely.
best gift you can give them. Instead of
Mm.
getting them a bone or a ball or a bed or something like that, get them this book. It's like I call it like a Bible. It's like it's the ins and out of how to be the best pet parent you can be. So let's, so definitely. And then I know this is one of your. What dog was this? This is Trek.
Yeah, this is my dog. This is Tech. We're renaming Tank because he nearly died 2 years ago, but it was actually due his resilience and determination he pulled through. So we've got Tech Tank now. But yeah, he's a rescue dog. Tech Tank. So he's my dog, and then you see me at the back and there, and that's my other little dog, Spotiful.
There
Spot.
you go. That's awesome. So
Thank
everybody,
you.
yeah, everybody, thank you for being here. We will see you guys here shortly on our next live. And you'll be sure to be seeing, I'm sure Christina will be coming back. I'll be twisting her arm from across the pond, let's say, to have her back. So
I'll be
everybody,
back.
she'll be back. Watch out. Everybody with that, have a beautiful, beautiful day, evening, wherever you are in the world. And we will see you guys soon. It's always such a